A 43-year-old dreamer. Mark's voice boomed across the restaurant, drowning out the birthday music playing for my mother. Laughter erupted from the table. My hands trembled as I set down my fork, the pasta suddenly tasteless in my mouth. I had just finished explaining my plan to start a home renovation business, something I'd been working toward for months in secret. Mark leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that smug smile plastered across his face. "Come on. Everyone knows he'll be back begging for money in 6 months," he continued, gesturing toward me like I was a child. My cousins chuckled. My aunt looked away. My mother, the birthday girl herself, said absolutely nothing. She just cut into her cake, eyes fixed on her plate. That silence burned deeper than any insult Mark could throw at me. I sat frozen, my carefully prepared speech about business plans and certification courses dying in my throat. My name is Vincent Torres, and I'm 43 years old from Phoenix, Arizona. If you enjoy stories about underdogs who refuse to quit, please subscribe to this channel for more fascinating stories like this one. Because what happened next changed everything. That night, unable to sleep, I heard voices from the kitchen. Mark's voice carried through the thin walls. "He's dead weight, honey. Always has been." The next morning, I found my mother alone in the garden, pruning roses with unusual intensity. The confrontation I'd rehearsed all night stuck in my throat, but I forced the words out. "Mom, did you mean what you didn't say last night?" She snipped a wilted bloom, not looking up. "Vincent, sweetie, I just want what's best for you." That's not an answer. Finally, she met my eyes, and what I saw there made my stomach drop. Doubt. "Mark thinks you're holding me back from enjoying my retirement. He says you're almost 50 and still figuring things out." "I'm 43, I corrected quietly. She sighed, setting down the shears. "Maybe you need to be more realistic. These fantasies about starting businesses, they're not practical at your age. Mark has experience in construction. He knows how hard it is." Mark had owned a contracting company for 15 years. He'd built that credibility into a weapon against me. "So you agree with him?" My mother's hesitation was answer enough. She was starting to believe his narrative, that I was a family failure, the perpetual child who never launched. That conversation ended with her asking me to seriously consider getting a regular job with benefits. I walked away knowing I'd never asked them for validation again. What Mark didn't know could fill a warehouse. For the past 8 months, I'd been taking evening certification courses in electrical work, plumbing, and general contracting. While he mocked me at family dinners, I was earning credentials. While he told people I was lost, I was building a foundation. I'd also been doing free work for neighbors. Mrs. Kowalski's leaking bathroom, the Peterson family's deck repair, old Mr. Hammond's kitchen cabinets. Each project taught me something new, and I documented everything with photos, careful notes, and time logs. I created a portfolio that Mark knew nothing about. At home, I played the part he expected, the aimless stepson, the disappointment. I stopped mentioning my plans, stopped defending myself, let him think I'd given up. Meanwhile, I studied building codes after everyone went to bed. I practiced techniques in my small workshop behind the garage. I networked quietly at hardware stores and lumber yards. The day my electrical certification arrived in the mail, I hid it in my room. 3 days later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Vincent Torres? I heard you do excellent renovation work." Mrs. Patterson was a retired school teacher who wanted her entire first floor remodeled. New flooring, updated electrical, a redesigned kitchen. It was bigger than anything I had tackled before, and my hand shook as I wrote the estimate. "Your neighbor, Mr. Hammond, speaks very highly of you," she said, pouring tea in her dated but clean kitchen. "He says you're thorough and honest." I gave her a fair price, probably too fair, and she hired me on the spot. For the next 6 weeks, I worked every spare moment. Mornings before my part-time warehouse job, evenings, weekends. Mark noticed my absence. "Where have you been disappearing to?" he asked one Sunday. "Around," I said. He smirked. "Still playing contractor?" "Something like that." His laughter followed me out the door. Let him laugh. Mrs. Patterson's kitchen was taking shape beautifully. The electrical work passed inspection on the first try. The tile work was level and precise. I was exhausted but proud. When I finished, Mrs. Patterson walked through her transformed home with tears in her eyes. "This is exactly what I dreamed of," she whispered. 2 days later, she called again. "Vincent, I told someone about your work. Someone important. She'd like to meet you." The woman's name was Angela Reeves, and she directed a housing nonprofit that renovated homes for low-income families. Her office walls were covered with before and after photos of transformed houses, each one representing a family given a fresh start. "Mrs. Patterson showed me pictures of your work," Angela said, sliding a folder across her desk. "We have 6 properties that need complete renovations. The funding is approved, but our regular contractor just backed out." My heart pounded. 6 properties? Full remodels, kitchens, bathrooms, structural repairs. Are you interested? I should have felt pure excitement, but fear gripped me. This was huge, maybe too huge. What if I failed? What if Mark was right about me? Angela must have seen my hesitation. "I believe in second chances, Vincent. These families deserve quality work, and your portfolio shows you care about craftsmanship." I accepted, my voice steadier than I felt. We scheduled the first walkthrough for the following week. That evening at dinner, Mark made an announcement that froze my blood. "Got some big news," he declared. "My company just bid on a major community renovation contract. 10 properties for some nonprofit. Should hear back next week." The fundraiser was held at a downtown hotel, a gathering of donors and community leaders supporting affordable housing initiatives. I only attended because Angela had invited me, wanting to introduce me to potential future clients. I wore my only suit, feeling out of place among the wealth and confidence that filled the room. Then I saw Mark across the hall, schmoozing with a council member. My stomach dropped. Of course he'd be here, networking for contracts. I tried to blend into the background, but Mark spotted me. His eyes widened, then narrowed with amusement. He crossed the room with deliberate steps, voice raised just enough to draw attention. Well, Vincent Torres, everybody. My stepson, the big dreamer." He turned to the small group around him. "Be careful if this guy offers you services. He's playing contractor, but he's got no real experience. Wouldn't want anyone getting burned by amateur work." Heat flooded my face. A few people glanced away uncomfortably. Others looked at me with sudden wariness. Angela Reeves stood 10 feet away, holding a glass of wine, watching the entire scene unfold. My chest tightened. This was it. The moment I lost everything before it even started. Angela set down her glass and walked toward us. "Mark, isn't it?" Angela's voice cut through the awkward silence. I couldn't help but overhear. Mark straightened, recognizing authority when he saw it. "Angela Reeves, yes. My company bid on your nonprofit contract. I remember." She turned to me with a slight smile. "Vincent and I were just discussing the properties he'll be renovating for us. 6 homes, full remodels. His portfolio is impressive." Mark's confident expression faltered. "Wait, you've already hired someone?" "Vincent came highly recommended. His work speaks for itself." She handed me her business card, though I already had 3. "We'll finalize the paperwork next week." I managed a nod, not trusting my voice. Angela excused herself gracefully, leaving Mark standing there, confusion mixing with something that looked almost like respect. "You're working for Reeves?" he asked quietly. "Starting next month." He recovered quickly, the smirk returning. "Well, don't screw it up. Nonprofits talk. One bad job, and you're done in this town." But his warning lacked its usual bite. For the first time, I'd seen uncertainty in his eyes. The following Tuesday, Angela called with news. "You've been awarded the contract. All 6 properties. Congratulations, Vincent." The next 4 months blurred together in a beautiful chaos of sawdust, paint fumes, and building permits. I hired 2 workers, both skilled craftsmen who'd been laid off from larger companies. Together, we transformed those 6 houses from neglected structures into real homes. We worked long hours, but the satisfaction of seeing families move into safe, updated spaces made every tired muscle worthwhile. At family dinners, which I still attended out of obligation to my mother, Mark continued his commentary. "How's the handyman business?" he'd ask, always with that condescending tone. Steady, I'd reply, bet you're barely breaking even. That's the problem with small-time operations. I said nothing, just passed the potatoes and changed the subject. My mother would glance between us, but she never intervened. Part of me had accepted that she'd chosen her silence. What I didn't share at those dinners was that my business was growing. Angela had recommended me to 3 other organizations. Word was spreading about quality work at fair prices. My calendar was filling up 6 months in advance. Then I started noticing things. Mark's truck, usually pristine, needed bodywork. He mentioned supply delays more frequently. Complained about clients negotiating prices down. His company, I realized, was struggling. I didn't go looking for information about Mark's finances. It found me through the industry grapevine, the way news travels in small construction circles. A supplier I work with mentioned that Mark's company owed them significant money, payment delayed 3 months running. Just thought you should know, he said, in case you're connected to his business at all. I wasn't, but curiosity drove me to dig deeper. Public records showed liens against Mark's company property. He'd taken out substantial loans against his equipment, the kind of risky borrowing that suggested cash flow problems. His website, once updated weekly with new projects, hadn't been refreshed in 4 months. The man who'd mocked my ambitions was drowning financially. Part of me felt vindicated. A larger part felt unsettled. I'd never wanted him to fail, just to stop crushing me with his contempt. Then Angela called with an interesting proposal. We're expanding our program, she explained. Partnering with the city for a major housing initiative. 20 properties mix commercial and residential. We need a primary contractor and several subcontractors. Your company isn't big enough yet to be primary, but I'd like you involved. Who's the primary? I asked, though something in her pause told me I wouldn't like the answer. We're reviewing bids now. Mark's company submitted one. My company would potentially work under Mark's supervision, with him having no idea I was involved. The contract documents arrived via email on a Wednesday morning. My company, Torres Renovation LLC, had been approved as a subcontractor for electrical and finish work on 12 of the 20 properties. The primary contractor's name appeared at the top of every page. Mendoza Construction and Development, Mark's company. I stared at the screen, coffee growing cold in my cup. The business was registered under my LLC, not my personal name. Mark had never bothered to learn the details of what I was building. As far as he knew, I was still playing at being a contractor, doing odd jobs for pocket money. But here, in official city documents, my company would work on his project. I'd be paid through his invoices, my crew following his timelines, technically under his authority. The smart business move was to decline, avoid the inevitable confrontation. But something else pushed me forward. Not revenge, exactly. More like a need to prove something to myself. I signed the agreement electronically, my cursor hovering over the submit button for only a moment. The contract was binding. Torres Renovation LLC would work for Mendoza Construction. Mark would supervise my crew without knowing he was supervising me. I sent the signed documents back to Angela with a simple message. Looking forward to working on this project. The first job site meeting happened on a cold Monday morning. I sent my lead worker, Felix, to represent Torres Renovation. I couldn't risk Mark recognizing me, so I stayed back at our other projects, coordinating by phone and text. Felix called me during lunch break. Boss, this guy is something else. He spent 20 minutes criticizing our equipment staging, then another 15 talking about how subcontractors always cut corners. Did he say anything about our company specifically? Not really. He doesn't seem to know anything about us except what's on the contract. Felix paused, but he kept talking about some family member who thinks he can run a business. Sounds like he's got issues. I almost laughed. Mark was complaining about me to my own employee without realizing it. Over the next 3 weeks, my crew worked on 4 properties under Mark's oversight. They reported back his constant criticisms, his micromanaging, his lectures about proper technique. But they also reported something interesting. He praised the mysterious company owner. Felix told me one evening, said whoever runs Torres Renovation clearly knows what they're doing, even if their name isn't familiar. He seemed almost impressed. Mark was praising my work without knowing it was mine. By month 3 of the project, something unexpected happened. The families moving into our completed units started leaving reviews online, mentioning the quality electrical work and beautiful finish details. Angela's nonprofit shared these testimonials on social media, tagging Mendoza Construction as the primary contractor. Mark's company Facebook page suddenly featured glowing comments about craftsmanship and attention to detail. He shared them proudly, adding captions about his company's commitment to excellence. He took credit publicly for work my crew had done, work he'd only supervised from a distance. At a family dinner, he brought printed copies of the reviews. "See this?" he said, passing them around the table. "This is what real success looks like, building a reputation for quality." My mother beamed at him. "We're so proud of you, Mark." He didn't mention the subcontractors who'd done the actual work. Why would he? In his mind, his company name on the contract meant the success belonged to him. I sat quietly, pushing food around my plate, saying nothing. Then Angela called with an invitation. "The city is hosting an award ceremony for community development projects. Your company is being recognized for outstanding subcontractor performance. I'd like you to attend and accept the award. Will Mark be there?" As primary contractor, yes, he'll receive an award too. This was it, the moment my anonymity would end. The award ceremony was scheduled for Friday evening. I had 4 days to decide whether to attend and reveal myself, or send Felix in my place and maintain the secret. The cautious choice was obvious. Stay hidden, avoid confrontation, keep building my business quietly. But Wednesday afternoon, Mark almost discovered the truth on his own. He stopped by one of our job sites unannounced, something he rarely did. Felix told me later that Mark had been reviewing electrical plans when he noticed a signature on the permit application. V. Torres, licensed contractor. "Who's V. Torres?" Mark had asked. Felix, thinking quickly, replied, "The owner. He handles all the paperwork and permitting." "Where is he? I'd like to meet him." "Different site today. I can have him call you." Mark had studied the signature for a long moment, and Felix said his expression shifted to confusion, suspicion, then dismissal. "Torres. That's a common name. Probably no one I know." He'd left without pushing further, but it was too close. My mother's maiden name was Torres. Mark knew that. He just hadn't made the connection yet. Hadn't imagined his stepson capable of running a legitimate contracting company. That evening, my mother called me. "Vincent, honey, have you been doing well? You seem different lately." "Different how?" "I don't know. More confident. Maybe. Less anxious." She paused. "Are you happy?" The question surprised me. When had she last asked about my happiness? "Yeah, Mom. I am." "Good. That's good." Another pause. Mark's been under a lot of stress with work. Be patient with him. Always defending him. Even now. Thursday morning, Mark cornered me in the garage while I was loading tools into my truck. His face was red, jaw tight with barely controlled anger. "I've been thinking," he started, blocking my path to the driver's door. "You're 43 years old, living in your mother's house, working whatever odd jobs you can find. It's embarrassing." "I pay rent," I said quietly. "Pocket change. You're wasting your time and, frankly, wasting space. I've talked to your mother, and we agree. It's time for you to either grow up or move out." My hands tightened on the toolbox I was holding. "You talked to my mother about kicking me out?" "About encouraging you to be independent. There's a difference." He crossed his arms. "You need real work, Vincent. A real job with a real company. This handyman thing isn't cutting it. And if I don't want a real job..." His laugh was harsh. "Then you need to find somewhere else to live. Your mother deserves to enjoy her retirement without worrying about you." I looked past him toward the house, where my mother stood at the kitchen window, watching us. She didn't come out, didn't intervene, just watched. "How long do I have?" I asked. "End of the month. That's 3 weeks. Enough time to get your act together." I nodded slowly, setting the toolbox in my truck bed. "Understood." Mark seemed surprised by my lack of argument. He'd expected a fight, maybe tears, pleas for more time. Instead, I just climbed into my truck and drove away. That night, I found a small apartment across town. 1 bedroom, affordable, available immediately. I signed the lease the next morning. Moving out was simpler than expected. I didn't own much furniture, and what I had fit easily into my truck and a borrowed trailer. My mother cried when I loaded the last box, but she didn't ask me to stay. "You'll visit, won't you?" she asked, mascara smudging under her eyes. "Of course, Mom." Mark stood on the porch, arms crossed, supervising my departure like a warden watching a prisoner leave. "This is for the best," he called out. "You'll see. Little push is what you needed." I didn't respond, just secured the final strap on the trailer and drove away. The apartment was quiet that first night, almost too quiet. No television sounds from Mark's sports programs. No smell of my mother's cooking. Just silence and the hum of the refrigerator. I sat on the floor, eating takeout pizza, surrounded by unpacked boxes. My phone buzzed with a text from Felix. 3 more properties approved. Schedule is filling up. "You good, boss?" I typed back, "Never better," but exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. The constant work, the family stress, the careful maintenance of my secret business. It all caught up at once. For the first time in months, I questioned everything. Was this worth it? The isolation, the strain, the careful deception? Then my email chimed. A message from a woman named Olivia Chun, director of a regional renovation network. "Mr. Torres, I'd like to discuss a partnership opportunity. Please call at your earliest convenience." Olivia's office occupied the top floor of a renovated warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and modern lighting. She greeted me with a firm handshake and a direct gaze that suggested she didn't waste time on small talk. "Your work is gaining attention," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her glass desk. "Quality craftsmanship, fair pricing, reliable timelines. Those 3 things rarely come together. I try to deliver what I promise. That's rarer than you'd think in this industry." She opened a laptop, turning it toward me. "Our network connects contractors across the region. We pool resources, share large projects, provide insurance and bonding support. We're selective about partnerships, but I think you'd be a good fit." The screen showed a map dotted with locations, each representing a contractor in her network. The potential access to projects and resources was staggering. "What's the catch?" I asked. She smiled. "Smart question. The catch is we maintain high standards. If your work quality drops, you're out. If you miss deadlines without valid reason, you're out. If clients complain about your ethics, you're out. We protect our reputation fiercely." "Sounds fair. There's one more thing." She closed the laptop. "We control contract distribution in this region. If you join us, you'll have access to projects you couldn't get otherwise. But it also means we have influence over who works in this market." Understanding dawned slowly. You decide who gets contracts. We make recommendations. City planners and nonprofits trust our judgment. She paused. "I notice you're subcontracting on the Mendoza project." My stomach tightened. "That's right. How's that going?" The question felt loaded. The work is good. The arrangement is complicated. I've heard things about Mendoza construction. Quality issues, missed deadlines, client complaints. She met my eyes. "If you join our network, that might affect his future contract opportunities. Mark's fate, potentially tied to my decision." I signed the partnership agreement the following Tuesday, officially joining the renovation network as a probationary member. The probation period would last 6 months, during which my work would be carefully evaluated. If I maintained their standards, I'd become a full partner with voting rights on contract decisions. The immediate benefit was access to a bonding company that allowed me to bid on much larger projects. Within a week, I submitted proposals for 3 jobs I couldn't have touched before, each worth more than everything I'd earned in the past year combined. Mark remained oblivious to this shift. At the job sites, he still supervised my crew with the same condescending tone, still made comments about subcontractors needing constant oversight. Felix reported every interaction with barely concealed amusement. "He has no idea, does he?" Felix asked one afternoon. "None whatsoever." What Mark also didn't know was that his company was under review by the network. Olivia had received complaints from 2 recent clients about substandard work and budget overruns. The network was quietly investigating, and Mark's future in the regional market hung in the balance. Then Mark made a critical mistake. At a public city council meeting about future housing projects, he stood up and criticized the renovation network, calling them gatekeepers who limit competition and drive up costs. Olivia was in the audience. So were 3 other network partners. The council meeting went viral in local construction circles. Someone recorded Mark's speech and posted it online, where contractors debated his points in heated comment threads. Some agreed with him about the network controlling access. Others defended the quality standards. Olivia called me the next morning. We're reviewing Mendoza Construction's performance on current projects. Given his public statements, the review will be thorough. What does that mean for my involvement? Nothing changes for you. Your work stands on its own merit. She paused. But I wanted you to know that his company is being evaluated based on objective criteria. Completion rates, quality inspections, client satisfaction, financial stability. 3 weeks later, the review results were released internally. Mendoza Construction had failed quality inspections on 2 properties due to improper waterproofing and outdated electrical methods that didn't meet current code. Both were Mark's mistakes, not related to subcontractor work. The network voted to remove Mendoza Construction from their recommended contractor list. Without that recommendation, Mark's access to city and nonprofit contracts essentially dried up. He'd have to compete in the open market without the network's endorsement, a nearly impossible task. His company lost 2 major contracts within days, projects he'd been counting on to cover his loans and payroll. My phone rang on a Friday evening. Mark's number appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Let him leave a voicemail, let him wonder. But curiosity won. Vincent. His voice sounded strained, missing its usual confidence. I need to talk to you about something. Business. Business? Yeah, Look, can we meet? Maybe tomorrow morning. This was new. Mark asking, not demanding. Mark calling me for help instead of lecturing me about my failures. What's this about? I asked. I'd rather discuss it in person. Please. That please might have been the first time he'd ever used that word with me. Tomorrow at 10. Coffee shop on Main Street. Thank you, he said, and ended the call. I sat staring at my phone, processing what had just happened. Mark was desperate enough to reach out to me, to ask for a meeting, to say please and thank you. His company was collapsing, and somehow he thought I could help. The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table where I could watch the door. Mark walked in exactly at 10, looking older than I remembered. His clothes were clean but rumpled, his usual swagger replaced by tired uncertainty. He ordered coffee, black, and sat down across from me, without the customary small talk. I'll get straight to it, he said. My company is in trouble. I've lost contracts, got quality complaints, and my reputation is taking hits I can't afford. I heard through the grapevine that you might have connections to the renovation network. I sipped my coffee, waiting. I need help getting back on their recommended list. If you know anyone, if you have any pull, I'm asking for your assistance. Still, I said nothing. Mark's jaw tightened. Look, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but this is business. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for a professional favor that I'd repay. How would you repay it? Whatever you need. Future work, recommendations, I don't know. Name it. I set down my cup carefully. Do you know who owns Torres Renovation? His brow furrowed. Some contractor. Why? Take a guess. Confusion crossed his face, then the slow dawn of realization. His eyes widened, color draining from his cheeks. No, he whispered. Yes. Mark stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You own Torres Renovation? Licensed, bonded, insured. Member of the Regional Renovation Network as of 3 weeks ago. He slumped back in his chair, hands trembling slightly as they gripped his coffee cup. That's impossible. You're a 43-year-old dreamer? I finished. Dead weight? An amateur playing contractor? He couldn't finish the sentence. You've been supervising my crew for 4 months, Mark, taking credit for my work, praising the mysterious Torres Renovation owner while mocking me at family dinners. I kept my voice level, almost gentle. The irony is pretty thick. His face flushed red, then pale again. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened? Would you have believed me? I leaned forward. You spent 2 years convincing everyone, including my mother, that I was a failure. You kicked me out of my own home for pursuing exactly what I built. Why would I hand you that information? I didn't know, he said weakly. That's the problem, Mark. You never bothered to know. You saw what you wanted to see and mocked everything else. We sat in silence for a long moment. The coffee shop buzzed with Saturday morning activity around us, but our table felt isolated, trapped in its own bubble of uncomfortable truth. The network, Mark finally said. You have influence there now. Some. I'm still probationary. Can you help me? I considered the question carefully. Not whether I could, but whether I should. I can make an introduction, I said finally. Set up a meeting with Olivia Chun, the network director. But I can't guarantee anything, and I won't lie about your work quality. Mark's expression shifted through relief, suspicion, then something like resignation. That's fair. There's something else you need to know. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery, showing him pictures from our current job sites. My crew documented your quality issues on the Mendoza projects. Improper waterproofing on Unit 7 and 9. Outdated electrical methods on Unit 12. Those failures are yours, not your subcontractors. He looked at the photos, his jaw tightening with each swipe. The network based their decision on evidence, Mark. If you want back in, you'll need to fix those issues and prove you can meet their standards consistently. And you'll help me do that? I'll give you the same chance everyone else gets. No favoritism, but no sabotage either. You'll succeed or fail on your own merit. Mark set down his phone carefully. Why? After everything I said, everything I did, why help me at all? Good question. I'd asked myself the same thing during the sleepless hours before this meeting. Because being better than you means actually being better, not just tearing you down the way you try to tear me down. He flinched at that, and because I continued, my mother loves you. I don't understand it, and I don't have to, but destroying you will hurt her, and despite everything, I don't want that. Mark's eyes glistened, though he blinked rapidly to clear them. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. I was wrong about you. Completely, utterly wrong. I saw you as competition for your mother's attention. Saw your dreams as threats to the stability I'd built with her. So I crushed them or tried to. He met my eyes. I'm sorry, Vincent. Truly. The apology felt genuine, but words were easy. Actions would prove whether he meant them. We'll see, I said, standing up. I'll contact Olivia on Monday. As I turned to leave, Mark spoke again. Your mother doesn't know yet, does she, about your company? Not yet. She should hear it from you. On that, at least we agreed. Sunday dinner at my mother's house felt different, charged with unspoken tension. Mark had asked me to come, saying there was something important to discuss. I arrived with my portfolio, business license, and a year's worth of documentation, proving Torres Renovation success. My mother answered the door in her favorite apron, smiling warmly. Vincent, honey, come in. Mark said you two had coffee yesterday. We did. She led me to the dining room where Mark already sat, looking nervous. The table was set for 3, roast chicken and vegetables filling the air with familiar, comforting scents. Before we eat, Mark said, his voice unsteady, Vincent has something to share. My mother looked between us, confusion and concern mixing on her face. What's going on? I set my portfolio on the table, opening it to reveal business documents, client testimonials, and photos of completed projects. Mom, for the past year and a half, I've been building a renovation company, Torres Renovation LLC. We've completed 18 full home remodels, earned multiple contractor certifications, and joined a regional renovation network. She stared at the papers, not touching them. I don't understand. The work Mark has been praising, the Torres Renovation that's been his top subcontractor, That's my company. I own it. I run it. Those glowing reviews he's been sharing are about my work. Her hand went to her mouth. But you never said anything. Would you have believed me? I asked gently. When Mark was calling me a dreamer and a failure, would you have defended me? The question hung in the air, unanswered because we both knew the truth. Mark cleared his throat. I owe both of you an apology. Vincent, I tried to crush your dreams because they threatened my ego. I mocked you, sabotaged you, and convinced your mother you were hopeless. He turned to my mother. And honey, I manipulated you into doubting your own son. That was wrong. Unforgivably wrong. Tears streamed down my mother's face as she looked through the portfolio, seeing evidence of success she'd never acknowledged, potential she'd never defended. Oh, Vincent, she whispered. I'm so sorry. The weeks following that dinner were complicated. My mother called frequently, trying to rebuild what had been broken, asking questions about my business she should have asked years ago. I answered honestly, but forgiveness didn't come instantly. Trust, once shattered, required time to rebuild. Mark followed through on his promises. He met with Olivia, submitted to quality inspections, and hired additional supervisors to ensure his work met network standards. The process was humbling for him, accepting oversight and criticism from people who'd once seen him as an industry leader. The network reviewed his progress monthly. Slowly, grudgingly, his reputation began to recover, not to where it was he'd lost that through his own failures, but to a place where he could work honestly and competently. His company downsized significantly. He went from 12 employees to 4, from pursuing major contracts to accepting smaller, manageable projects. The financial hit was substantial, forcing him to sell equipment and restructure loans. One evening, he called me. The network approved me for probationary status. I'm back on the recommended list with conditions. Congratulations. I couldn't have done it without your introduction. He paused. Thank you. Don't thank me, Mark. Thank yourself for doing the work. Still, I know what it cost you to help me after everything. Maybe it had cost me something. The satisfaction of watching him fail completely. The vindication of total victory. But I gained something better. The knowledge that I could extend mercy without compromising my own success. Focus on the quality work. I told him, that's what matters now. 2 months later, my mother called with unexpected news. Vincent, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About my marriage, about my priorities, about the choices I've made. Okay, I'm not leaving Mark, she said quickly, but I'm also not going to let him make me choose between him and my son ever again. I've opened my own bank account, and I'm making decisions independent of his opinion. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A start. Mark called on a Tuesday afternoon, his voice tight with stress. Vincent, I need advice. Not a favor, just professional guidance. What's going on? I've got a project that's beyond my current capacity. Electrical work that requires certification I don't have anymore. My license lapsed, and renewal takes weeks I don't have. Why not hire it out? The client wants Mendoza Construction specifically based on my old reputation. If I subcontract, I need someone reliable who can work under my name legally. Understanding clicked. You want to hire Torres Renovation. At market rate. Full payment front. With a contract stating you're an independent subcontractor. No favors, no family discount. Pure business. I considered carefully. Working for Mark again, even on legitimate terms, felt risky. But he was offering fair terms, honest work, and treating me as an equal professional. Send me the project details. I'll review and get back to you within 48 hours. The project was solid, a commercial renovation for a local restaurant. The electrical work was complex, but within my team's capabilities. I gave Mark a fair quote, slightly higher than I'd charge a stranger to account for our history. He accepted without negotiation. For 6 weeks, my crew worked under Mark's coordination. The dynamic had shifted completely. He consulted rather than commanded, asked questions rather than assumed, and gave credit where it was due. When the project finished ahead of schedule, he shared the success publicly, tagging Torres Renovation in his social media posts. Quality work from a quality partner. His post read, proud to work with Torres Renovation on this project. My mother called after seeing it. "He's learning," she said softly. "Maybe," I agreed. "Time will tell." 2 years later, Torres Renovation operated out of a small commercial space with 6 full-time employees and a reputation for excellence. We completed over 70 projects, maintained a perfect rating with the renovation network, and earned enough that I bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. Mark's company survived, smaller but more stable, focusing on mid-sized projects he could manage with quality and integrity. He'd rebuilt some of his reputation through consistent work and honest dealing. We occasionally collaborated on larger jobs, maintaining professional distance that worked for both of us. My mother and I had dinner every Sunday, just the two of us, rebuilding our relationship brick by careful brick. She'd started volunteering at a women's shelter, finding purpose beyond her marriage. Her apologies continued, but more importantly, her actions had changed. One afternoon, a young man came to my office, nervous and hopeful, carrying a portfolio of work he'd done for neighbors. "Mr. Torres, I heard you sometimes mentor new contractors. I was wondering if you'd look at my work." I saw myself in him, the desperate hope mixed with fear of rejection. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to a chair. "Let's see what you've got." As he spread his photos across my desk, talking eagerly about his dreams of starting a business, I thought about Mark's laughter at my mother's birthday dinner, the public humiliation that had almost crushed me. They'd laugh when I was rebuilding my life, piece by careful piece. They'd mock when I was laying foundations they couldn't see. Now they saw what patience looked like, what quiet determination could build, what happened when you proved people wrong not through anger or revenge, but through excellence they couldn't deny. I gave the young contractor honest feedback, offering to connect him with suppliers and recommend him for small projects. His gratitude reminded me why I'd chosen this path. Justice without cruelty, success without bitterness, victory on my own terms. The story of the 43-year-old dreamer who built something real while everyone laughed, then stopped laughing, then asked for help, and I gave it because being better than them meant actually being better. That was the most unexpected victory of all.